When I was a kid, we used to visit my great grandparents in Florida. They were Italian. One was from Sicily, one from Naples. And when I say they're Italian, I don't mean this is like something you fill out in a form and you say, like, you have Italian heritage. I mean, they were actually from Italy. Like, they came over on a boat from Italy. Now, I remember a few things about their household, but one of them is the smell. They had a very distinct mixture of two scents. One was my great grandmother's cooking, which always smelled fantastic. And the other was, well, is my great grandfather's cigarette smoke. It just was how it was. Somehow, tomato sauce and cigarette smoke became the smell of my family. Their dining room sat right off the kitchen, and you had to walk around it to get inside of it. So you had to walk past my great grandfather smoking a cigarette to get to the kitchen where the food was at. But the kitchen, that's where, that's sacred ground right there. Unfortunately, the men were not allowed in the kitchen really. I mean, they could pass through it to get to the garage, but to cook? No. Mm-mm. Touch anything? Absolutely not. As a kid, I didn't question it. That was just the way things were. But what mattered most in that kitchen was the sauce. Pasta sauce. Our family's Italian pasta sauce recipe. Now, I can't tell you what's in it. That's classified information. But I will tell you one thing. My great grandfather liked raisins in his meatballs. Ugh, gross. The rest of us find that pretty deeply offensive, so that part of the recipe, let's just say it hasn't survived the other generations. But the sauce itself, it has. And here's the interesting part. My dad, the actual Italian in the family, he wasn't ever allowed in the kitchen to learn it. My great grandmother taught my mom, my Dutch mother. And honestly, if I'm being real, she's probably more Italian than most of us. She really should have been Italian. I grew up eating this homemade sauce. I don't even remember eating or tasting jarred pasta sauce until I was a teenager. In fact, I distinctly remember going to one of my friends' house for dinner and being excited for pasta, and then nearly gagging trying to swallow whatever came out of a jar that they had made. I thought, is this really what people eat? I was kind of spoiled, and I didn't even know it at the time. But fast forward to my early 20s. I came home from college one time and we were going to make sauce. I was standing in the kitchen, moving through the steps I'd watched and practiced for so many years. And my dad looked at me and he said, "Hey, Michelle, can you teach me how to make the sauce?" I kind of froze for a second. Because in that moment, my brain stitched together 20 years of memories. My great-grandmother made it. She taught my mom. My mom taught me. And now I had to teach my dad? The Italian? It felt surreal, almost sacred. And I remember thinking, how often do you get to teach your parent something about their own heritage? But I did. I taught him, and he loved it. Maybe because he finally could. Maybe because he finally felt connected to something he'd watched from the doorway his whole life. And then something really cool happened about 10 years later. Something maybe even more beautiful. My parents moved closer to my oldest brother and his family, and one day my dad taught his granddaughter, my niece, how to make sauce. It's a full circle moment. My great-grandmother, my mom, me, my dad, and then my niece. 5 generations connected by tomatoes, garlic, and thyme. Over the past decade, I've watched my niece go from being afraid of the oil popping in the pan to confidently stirring the pot herself. And here's the thing about this recipe. It's never been written down. Not once. It lives only in the memories of those who make it. In the muscle memory, in the taste test, in the little more of that, in watching someone's hands as they measure out the ingredients. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. This isn't something you Google online. It's not something you measure perfectly. It's something you receive. You understand and you kind of memorize as you go. And here's what I love most. When I make it, I can't make a small batch. I only know how to make the huge pot of sauce. So I get to share it. I fill mason jars and hand them out at work, or to friends, or to neighbors. People know if I'm making sauce, they're going home with some. And every time someone takes that first bite and smiles, I think about my great-grandmother, a woman who will never know how far her recipe traveled. who will never see her great great granddaughter stirring the same pot of sauce, who will never know that in Arkansas and beyond, people gather around tables because of something she started. But I like to imagine she sees it somehow, and she's smiling, because what she really passed down wasn't just the sauce. It was a piece of our memories, our identity. It was a connection. It was the discipline of showing up in the kitchen and teaching one person at a time. That's how traditions survive, not through perfection, not through paperwork, but through presence. So here's my challenge to you today. Slow down, just enough to notice what's being handed to you. Maybe it's a recipe, maybe it's a story, maybe it's a skill, maybe it's just the way your grandmother folds napkins or the way your dad fixes things without instructions. Don't let it disappear because you were a little too busy. Learn it, practice it, and pass it on. And if you're lucky enough to teach it back across generations, don't you dare miss that moment. Because family, whether it's the one you were born into or the one you build, is held together by these small, ordinary, sacred exchanges. Sometimes it's as simple as standing in the kitchen and saying, let me show you how we make this sauce. And trusting that long after you're gone, someone else will still be stirring the pot.